So of course it's possible to build muscle and burn fat at the same time. Did somebody else tell you otherwise? In this video I'm going to dig into a lot of the details that you'll need to consider. Perhaps you want to build them in to your own lifestyle, to your own routine moving forward, but you'll be able to continue on your quest and be a little bit more confident perhaps in what you're doing. And just a quick note before we go any further, if you prefer content that is more concise, more straightforward, more to the point, fewer tangents, potentially fewer rambles, although how you don't like a ramble or a tangent is beyond me, then I have another channel where I aim just to provide more concise, straightforward, to the point content. And it's done with an interesting background, so you don't have to look at me or my gym or part of my gym behind me. And yeah, it's just an alternative for you if you want it in the description below. Otherwise, stick around, you might enjoy this, and who knows, you might actually gain a tip or two. So to start off with, some definitions. We need to know what we're talking about after all. So bulking is generally when we tend to consume more calories than our maintenance. How many more is the big question, or how much more? How many much more is the question, perhaps. And then there's the cutting, where it's the opposite side of the coin, and that is where we consume deficits rather than a surplus, so that we're consuming fewer calories than we actually need, and therefore, ta-da, fat burning occurs, or so it should. And then there's recomposition. I think that's the fancy term that's been given for this over the years, where we do a bit of both. So sometimes we are in a bit of a surplus, sometimes we're in a bit of a deficit, but the main point is that we are building muscle as a result of our weight training, and we are losing fat as a result of generally nutritional manipulation. So the reality is that we're all capable of building muscle on just a small calorie surplus, or perhaps no calorie surplus at all. It's just not necessary. And what we'll find is that it's more about honing the finer details of what you're doing, both from a nutritional practice and the work that you do in the gym. It's looking at these finer details such as macronutrients that you're consuming, the calories you're consuming, your technique, your form, etc. Those kind of really important fundamental things. Taking care of those, really understanding what they are in the first place, and then practicing them in a really effective manner, that will make all the difference to what you're doing. And so we'll have a real deep dive on all these issues shortly, once we get a few key things out of the way to understand before we get there. So, categories of people. This is a really important one, because we're not all the same. We are different genders, different heights, different shapes, different abilities, different mindsets, etc. And most of all, we are all on a different track, a different degree of progress. Some of us are new, some of us are intermediate, some of us are advanced, and that has a great deal of effect on exactly what you can achieve and how fast you can achieve it. So the first thing to look at, or first person, first category, is that of a newbie. Those lucky buggers who have it all ahead of them and have the chance now to have all that knowledge when they begin. Such as YouTube channels like this, which you can subscribe to, you can like, and you can comment on if you're enjoying the content. So the newbie is someone who hasn't really lifted at all, or maybe they're just right at the very start and trying a couple of things out. Now these people are just so primed and ready to go. The body will adapt in a flash, and they can really take advantage of that and achieve anything they really want to. While the rest of us kind of just, we're in the background here, struggling away, trying to figure it all out, saying what went wrong. Well, hopefully it didn't go wrong, and but anyway. And the same can be said for returning lifters, whether you've just had a bit of a break off because of injury, or because you don't really like the gym, but you really like the idea of the goal you're trying to attain. or for whatever reason you just haven't been in the gym for a while, perhaps you've just sort of deflated a bit, your muscles aren't quite there, you've put a bit of weight on, and now you're ready to go at it again. Those people are in much the same position as the newbie, and when they return to the gym and they put a bit of attention back into their nutrition, that is when they'll see really great goals, or progress, toward their goals. And then there's another category of performance enhancement drugs. It's a road less traveled, but they make a remarkable difference, but not everyone is in that camp. And then there is the casual lifter. So someone who has enjoyed going to the gym. It's part of their lifestyle. They think they're doing the right thing, getting fit, getting healthy, lifting a bit of weight here and there. But now they might find themselves quite motivated for whatever reason. Maybe it's an occasion, a wedding, anniversary, holiday, bodybuilding competition, who knows. And now they decide that they actually want to improve and want to get serious and fine-tune things and just take it up a notch. Those people will also be in much the same camp as the newbie and the returning lifter, because they're just looking to make a bit of a change for the best, and the body will respond to that. And then you've got your overweight person. Now, the overweight person is quite important because they're set apart by the current state that they're in. When you are carrying more body fat, more weight, then that is where the body is much more inclined to actually give up the fat. And if you are overweight, the chances are you haven't really been building a great deal of muscle. And so therefore the body is also ready to do that as well in the majority of cases. So when you're overweight and you're stepping into the gym for the first time in goodness knows how long, or you're just deciding to step up your game, again, similar category to the newbie, to the returning lifter, to the person that's looking to step up their game. If you're overweight, then you're not too far off of that camp either. You're not all stood in the same circle, but you're all in the same sort of ballpark there. But then you have the advanced trainee. And those people, they're not the majority of people. They are quite few and far between, really. Those people that stick it out for all those years and go at it and go on the grind day after day after day, week after week, month and year after year. Those people are in a bit of a camp on their own, and they don't account for a lot of the population, but we'll have a look at what advanced trainees have got to do and consider going forward in order to carry on recomping, to carry on with the building of the muscle and burning the fat at the same time. It's an extremely interesting thing to have a look at. So just before we go any further, g'day, my name's Simon from the Deep South Experiment right here in Dunedin, New Zealand, the greatest place on earth, as per my opinion, my biased opinion, some might say. And it is on this channel that we look at muscle building, fat burning, and the mindset around it all that sort of ties it together, a bit of the glue that holds it all together. Three insanely interesting topics from my point of view. They have been dominating my life for the past couple of decades. And I assume that they'll keep dominating my thoughts for decades to come. And I'm fine with that because I find it really interesting, and I hope you do too. And if you do, then feel free to like and subscribe and maybe drop in a comment to show your love and appreciation for the channel, help it grow. It doesn't cost you anything, I don't think, unless you should have changed the rules, which I don't think they have. So if you would like to see more content like this, then you know what to do. I won't rattle on about that though, because it's quite, well, it feels a bit weird really. So anyway, so how do we do it? How do we recomp, build muscle and burn fat at the same time? Well, not at the same time. This is actually a point that always gets to me, is that you're not doing it at exactly the same time. Like this particular second, you're doing both. What I mean is over a 24-hour period of time, then you have done both within that period of time. So that as time progresses, you find that you are burning fat and you have built muscle, not at the same time, all the time, but within a 24-hour window, both have occurred. And within a 48-hour window, both have occurred. And 72, if you catch my drift, you're doing both over time at the same time. If you're confused as I am about that, then leave me a like below. So in the gym, progressive overload, massively important. I've done a video about that before. I'll probably do more in the future here, or I have a heat pump over here. For New Zealand heat pump, don't know if that's unique, but anyway, progressive overload is hugely important because it's what you need in order to progress, along with extremely hard work. When you're in the gym, you've got to be busting your gut. Doesn't actually have to be busted as such, but the phrase means, of course, is that you've really got to be putting in that effort if you want to succeed, especially when doing this at the same time. And it's the incorporation as well of the appropriate reps and sets. Done a video on that too, and I'll probably do many more in the future as well, because these are fundamental core points that really have to be understood and implemented. Sets and reps are really important to make sure that you're getting the best out of your workout. And your goals, you've got to define them. You've got to make sure that when you're stepping into the gym, what am I actually looking to do? What am I actually looking to achieve? And how is my nutrition supporting that? If you want to concentrate on building muscle, or if you want to concentrate on burning fat, or are you recomping? And we'll have a look later on at what goal might be most suitable for you now, and then in the future, of course, you reevaluate your goals and see where you're at. So goals are incredibly important to have, to stick to use you as a motivation tool going forward. And then on the nutritional side, hugely important, as people already probably know, nutrition is a massive part of this, and it's a huge tool that we can manipulate in order to get results. So first of all, you have to set your calories. And are you going to be in a surplus, or are you going to be in a deficit? But before you can start any of that, what is your maintenance level? And that's something that I can't just simply say a number for you to adhere to and be religious about and think, if I do this, I'm going to succeed. I can only give you the advice of, we have to use trial and error. I had to trial and error. I tell people to trial and error. I think trial and error is the only way, because we have so many unique factors about us that a one-size-fits-all approach simply isn't something that I would say to do when it comes to calories. It's such an important starting point. So you know what you eat on a daily basis. Figure out how many calories that is, and then take that amount and play with it. You might want to tidy up your diet into a more healthier food, larger food volume, fewer calories, which is, do you know what tends to happen when you eat healthier? And then have a little bit more, a little bit less, and see what your body weight does. Does it increase? Does it decrease? So what is that maintenance level? And then once you're there, that is when you can manipulate from that point on. But knowing that number, or that sort of ballpark number, because you won't get it exactly to a digit of accuracy, that simply doesn't exist, because we move all day, and that contributes towards energy expenditure, which is so hard to track. So you get that number that you think is probably accurate for a maintenance level, and then once you have that, you're good to go. And it's the world is your oyster, as they say. Is it the world is your oyster? World is your oyster, or the sky's the limit, whichever you want to use. You're at that point once you achieve the knowledge of what your maintenance level is, which most people don't. They just give up well before that point. Don't be that person. Be the person that walks around going, I know my maintenance levels, or level, or amount, number, not number, amount. I know my maintenance level-ish would be a great answer, because that ensures that you're not implying you know it to the digit. And then once you become a master of this calorie maintenance level, Then you become a master of protein. And what a massive topic that is. Very interesting yet again for me. It's been interesting for decades, and it'll be interesting for decades to come. Protein is an awesome macronutrient, so interesting and so vital and so important to what you're eating. I normally say a pound per body weight, and again, start with that and then move on from there. Or if you weigh a lot, base it upon your height as another metrics, because people tend to be around the same sort of heightish. I mean, I stand 7'5", so I'm an exception. Or is it 5'7"? And, other people weigh a lot, so they end up eating a huge amount of protein when they probably don't need to. So maybe height is more applicable for people who weigh a lot, but are probably around the same height as me. 7 feet or thereabouts. So then once you have your protein established, you can go from there and you can do great things. And then once you become a master of your protein levels, you might want to base it on lean body mass rather than your weight, or maybe your target body mass rather than your weight. So those are more advanced things that can happen later on as part of that refinement process as you become more advanced, and then your results are a little different because of you walking away from that newbie or returning person or more enthusiastic person stage. And then there's the rest of your nutrition. You've got your calories, you've got your protein, but then what about the rest? Carbohydrates and fats are also important. They tend to fill in the rest of your diet as a very simplistic way of looking at it. 50 to 60% carbs, give that a go and see where you land, and then the results will follow. The more intricate and in the weeds kind of approach to macronutrients is for a lot more advanced, and people that tend to struggle with making the slightest bit of progress really have to focus on that. But for this purpose of just figuring out where to start, then that kind of guidance would be perfectly adequate at this stage. And then the optimization sort of thing, that's where you just need to have a look at beyond the calories, the macronutrients and the proteins, the really important stuff. Just having a look at the finer details such as sleep and the stress levels and supplementation where you need it. Don't ever be afraid to supplement. It's a fantastic tool to rely on if you're traveling or you find yourself at a family function and they just have all this rubbish food everywhere. Get your Tupperware out and eat that. That's what I tend to do. Goes down really well. They love me for it. Well, I think they do. Anyway, maybe they don't. Who knows? It will be knowledge to me if they said no. They love my Tupperware. They even want to borrow it sometimes. They say, have you finished with your Tupperware yet? And I'm like, no, they haven't. But anyway, that's another story for another time. Tupperware Times, I could call. That's an interesting title to look out for. So now moving on to about how recomposition is possible or when it's not. It's nice and easy, of course, when you start, and then it gets a little tougher as time goes on. So let's have a look at that journey and what that looks like. So recomp is absolutely possible when you're new, when you've come back, when you're paying attention to nutrition, you put a bit of structure into your life, structure into your nutrition and your workouts. You've got a plan in place, you know what your goals are, and you're good to go. You'll be amazed about how easy things are when those things are right and in place and being done correctly. And then cue the Jaws music. I don't actually have any music, but that would be really good to have that. The do-do-do-do. I'm sure people know it. Google that if you don't know what Jaws is. That's when it gets a little bit different, is when you've been doing recomping for some time, you've got a degree or perhaps all the goals that you want, and now you're looking to just carry on, or you're looking to get to that next level if you're not happy with where you are at the moment. And that's when gains when they really start to get really slow, and it's hard to detect exactly where you're at, what you've done. If you sit back and you go, I don't actually know if I've built any muscle, or I can't really tell that I'm any leaner. And when you start asking those questions, that's a good sign that where you're at the moment is in that territory of where it's getting harder to recomp. And this will also happen when you're leaner too. The leaner you become and the more muscular you become. So therefore, the closer and closer you are to getting your goals, that's the point where the body will start to rebel. And it will start to be a real uphill battle just to get even the slightest gains. And it's a real psychological battle, because there was once upon a time when you went to the gym, you did this and you did that and you ate this and you ate that, and then boom, there it was. Now it's like a grind. It's like a fully fledged fight that you're participating in just to get the slightest result. And you just think to yourself, what is going on? You start blaming yourself, or you start blaming your lifestyle, or you start blaming a local politician for a decision that they've made, and it's all just falling apart. That's the sign that recomp is getting pretty hard, and you should look at, some other decisions, which we'll go through in a sec. And it's really interesting why the slowdown occurs. And my sort of theory behind this, well, I have a couple of theories, but the predominant thought that I've had and experienced in the past is that your muscles only grow so fast, right? And they'll only grow so much. Otherwise, we'd all be walking around like the Incredible Hulk and calling ourselves Marvel. Or maybe not. Maybe just be calling yourself the Incredible Hulk. Paint yourself green. Who knows? But the point being is that muscles will only grow so fast, and over time, they will only grow so fast slower, if that makes sense. So your gains will slow down over time. And now, if there is no further need to build that great amount of muscle that you once had, and now it's perhaps 5% of that demand, or 10%, or a smaller amount, then the energy required to once upon a time build that muscle is no longer there. It's no longer required, and so you'll burn less energy. You'll probably end up burning less body fat as a result of that. And not to mention how the body becomes smart, and that you're trying to burn body fat over here and you're trying to build muscle over here. That means that muscle is going to cost me energy, and over here you are eating less energy. So therefore I'm getting less energy, and therefore I'm not going to do what you want. And that generally tends to be the case. And so the more and more and more you push that process of, I want more muscle, but I'm still not going to give you the energy that you require or want, therefore the body becomes unsure about what's happening. And in a similar way to a starvation response on yo-yo dieting, etc., which is another fascinating subject to get into, the body kind of shuts that process down gradually over time, and then you become frustrated and think, what's going on? And that leads us into the case nicely of the case for cycling. So rather than building muscle and burning body fat at the same time, cycling is when, going back to the beginning of the video, is where you've got your bulking and your cutting phase, and you're cycling between those two phases all the time. So you're concentrating on one and then concentrating on the other. So the body knows exactly what's going on and has that reassurance, rather than umming and ahhing about the thing happening at the same time and shutting down on you and you getting frustrated, etc. So the case for cycling generally tends to consist of a few main points, and we'll run through those now. A lot of people tend to have cheat meals. I'm included in that. I love a good cheat meal, but then how much of a cheat meal do you have? Do you try and eat your way into oblivion, or do you just eat enough to go, yep, enjoyed that was nice, and now let's carry on with my goals? Or are you somewhere in between? So that's another issue. But then the actual cheat meals is if you're trying to be in a deficit, or you're trying to be a little bit over your maintenance, or you're trying to be at maintenance and achieving both at the same time. If you have a cheat meal, doesn't that just blow everything out of the water? And you're probably going to be in a surplus anyway in that respect because you've eaten so many thousands of calories in one sitting. Then over time, and you count it all up, doesn't that just put you in a small surplus anyway? So then the case for that is you are actually cycling without intentionally doing it, or perhaps even knowing about it. So something to consider there about whether you are actually cycling rather than recomping at any one given time. Another key point is these surpluses and deficits that are involved in cycling, they're not actually dramatic. It's more of a mindset. In order for you to say to yourself, right, today or this week or this month or the next quarter of the year perhaps, I'm going to be in a surplus because I'm going to concentrate on building muscle mass, or vice versa with the deficit. And they're not dramatic because you can't really do dramatic deficits or surpluses for a long period of time without crazy things happening to your body and your mind. So to say that you are in a small such and such deficit or surplus is more of the approach that I'd recommend rather than evidently or with intent going out there and saying, right, I'm doing 1,000 extra a day, because that is quite a dramatic thing. So one of the cases for cycling is that we're probably doing it anyway, or you could easily do it anyway without much change to what you're doing, because it's quite a finite process of figuring out how much to actually eat and then actually doing it, because of the various hormones we have, the fatigue that we have, the urge to eat that we have, the knowledge of how much calories the cheat meals actually have. All these factor into that to say, well, cycling might just be better off anyway to do. And then doing everything at the same time, there's an analogy I thought of a while ago when I was pouring my milk onto my Weet-Bix for my breakfast. I eat Weet-Bix for breakfast, just to clear that up. Now, water, I tend to hydrate myself quite a lot throughout the day. Milk, I like to consume that as part of my breakfast with my Weet-Bix. But I wouldn't do both at the same time. Like, I wouldn't pour half a glass of water and then pour half a glass of milk into that water and enjoy the milk and water at the same time. Wouldn't be ideal. So why would you do that with weight training and nutrition by trying to do burning body fat and building muscle at the same time? Just an interesting thing to have a think about. So the next time you're pouring milk or drinking water, just think of the other one. When you're hydrating yourself, just think, wouldn't I like a bit of milk with this water? Or if you're drinking your cereal, just go, I might just pour water over here. No, you wouldn't. So why would I do that with my goals? Anyway, leave a comment below if you agree with that, or if you adamantly disagree, or perhaps if you do drink water and milk at the same time, let me know. I'll be really interested to know. Maybe there's someone out there that does it. Not me. And then there's a time aspect. Everyone's worried about time. I mean, whenever I talk to anyone about building muscle or losing a few pounds, there's always a time aspect involved. I'm not doing that because it'll take forever, and then forever comes and goes. They're still the same. You think, if you'd done that when we talked about it, look where you'd be now. So time just passes anyway. It's just one of those things. Just focus on the now and your goals. And if you're thinking about, I want to recomp because it'll be faster, then just think about it. Because you've been doing cycling and you've been concentrating on one and not the other, and then you switched it around, so you've maybe been in a surplus to build muscle and then in a deficit to burn fat. Well, that's where the concentration has been and where the goals have been for 3 months, and then 3 months. You've maybe built 5% muscle in 3 months, and then 5% body fat you've lost in the next 3 months after that. In the end, because you've separated them, you've got a larger net result. You become leaner and you become evidently more muscular because that's what you were concentrating on solely in the first place. So just something to think about there is the time aspect and then what you can actually achieve by separating rather than combining. Just another thought for you there. And then there's the sending of signals too. This is a big point. Sending of signals, not about your cell phone signal, but it's about the environment inside of your body. So when you are in a surplus, quite often in a surplus, then you're going to be sending anabolic signals. Bit of a tongue twister. I might just say that 10 times fast later on, do it in front of the mirror behind me and see how impressed I can be with myself. But an anabolic environment is one where you are building muscle. And if you're concentrating on that all the time and that signal is constant, then that is what the body is going to do, going to be reassured that it's okay to do it. When you are in a deficit, you are sending a catabolic signal. And a catabolic signal is the breaking down of something. So in this case, hopefully it'll be the mobilization and oxidation or burning of body fat. And that will be the catabolism of your fat cells, your adipose tissue or adipose tissue, however you say it. Don't know, comment below. So when you are sending those signals, they're very powerful. If you're trying to do something at the same time and you're trying to fluctuate between those two in a dramatic sense, you're always going to fluctuate to a degree, but if you're evidently trying to do both at the same time, then there's a pretty strong argument that you are losing those two very powerful tools. You're not leveraging them to the best of your advantage. So again, something to think about in terms of cycling. And the last point to touch on is the psychology of it all. This is the mindset that is all to do with the Deep South experiment. So doing both, it's hard. Like, really committing to it and preparing yourself for it and going through it and getting everything as you need to satisfy yourself that you've done it and given it your best shot. The grind, the hard work, the hunger, the temptation, all of that is bloody hard work. And you've got to ask yourself, is that going to be worth it or should I cycle? And there are a lot of levers to pull or levers to pull. Comment below. And these are all to do with nutritional levers, and it's also to do with what you do in the gym, your form, your technique, the exercise selection, how hard you're working, training to failure, reps, sets, tempo, time under tension, all these things. There's a lot of things to pull. If you pull all those at once, just because you want to recomp and get a little way faster, then that is one heck of a psychological toll, stress that you're putting on yourself. And I would just ask you, yes, it's so possible to recomp. Absolutely. It can be done primarily how I outlined before, but is it worthwhile? And is there an advantage over doing that to cycling between cutting and a surplus, or deficit and a surplus? Again, something there to consider. So in closing, yes, this must all come to an end at some point, unfortunately. But in closing, the transition from recomping to cycling, you might think, I'm doing well at recomping and I haven't slowed down yet, so I'm going to carry on going. And that's great. If you can keep that train going, then do it. But the minute that train derails, love the analogy, then that's when you've got to think about transitioning into a cycle, deficit and or surplus. And to do that, you've really got to keep track of your results, and then you are able to be aware of what is actually happening within your body. And if you are actually at that stage where you need to think about that transition, or if you are just ticking along nicely, in which case, good on you, and keep it going. Hopefully you'll keep it going for as long as you can and the results will keep happening at the same speed or a similar speed to what you're used to and can live with. But never just keep pushing and pushing and pushing harder and harder and harder, pulling all those levers, doing all that you can in order to get that recomp. At some point, you'll have to transition out of it. Just be prepared for it, know what the signs are, and then when the time comes, just do it. It's that mindset, isn't it? Of just simply saying, right, I'm at that stage, maybe I'll have a week off, see if that makes a difference. If not, no, right, let's transition into something a little different, because you are probably in that advanced stage now rather than that newbie or returning person or someone who was casual, but now you're not, because now you're serious. Now it's time to play the game. Bit of Triple H there for the wrestling fans. Right, I think that's all. Hope you've enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe. I think I meant to say that before I go. And thank you so much if you're still here at the end. Really appreciate it, and hopefully it's been of use to you.